Welcome back to the channel and our trip through Alsace and the Black Forest. We continued our trip, this time visiting Obernai, an Alsatian city with about 1,300 inhabitants. Situated in a beautiful landscape between the Vosges and Mount Sainte-Odile and only 30 kilometers from Strasbourg, being one of the imprescindibles if you visit Alsace. As for parking, you will have no problems, as you have the Altau Parking and the parking of the walls, which in addition to large, are free and leave you the gates of the city. We parked in the parking of Altau, accessing the city by the Place de l'Étoile or Square of the Star, one of the most picturesque places of the villa. Despite being used partially as a parking lot, and where some of the wooden trunk houses with the most charm of the village, preserving several of them on the door a large stone carved with the date and the emblem of his gremio. From this square you can already see the most significant monument of Obernai, the Beffroi, which we will visit later when we walk through the square. The name of the square, of l'Étoile or the Star, is due to an ancient posada of the same name located in the number 7 of the plaza. After visiting the market square, the true center of Obernai, we visit the church of St. Peter and St. Paul, which stands out quite well in a village where the buildings do not have more than 2 floors. It was built in red sandstone in 1872 on a 15th century church. The crypt is dated between 1160 and 1170. It also highlights the organ of the year 1182 by Joseph Mocking, author of the Strasbourg Cathedral among others, and the glasses of the Gothic era. From the church we headed to the square, finding ourselves on our way with the Well of the 6 Cubes. Renaissance style and built in 1579, and in which in the inner hole we can see the 6 cubes hanging on 3 wheels, which give name to the well and which served in its day to raise water from the bottom. From here, accessing from the back of the town hall, we arrive at the market square, where from 1301, every Thursday, there is a weekly market. In this square are some of the most characteristic monuments of the city, such as the town hall, the fountain of Sainte-Odile, the wheat market or the Beffroi. The wheat market, built in 1554, was in its beginnings a public slaughterhouse and subsequently a wheater warehouse, highlighting apart from the windows and the beautiful balcony, the head of 2 wresses with the shield of the city. But what stands out most in the square and especially the profile of the city is the Beffroi or Kapellturm, with a height of 60 meters and built in 1285 during the imperial period. Originally it was a chapel dedicated to the Virgin Mary, of which there is the campanile and the abside, so it is also known as Kapellturm or Chapel of the Tower, fulfilling this tower also the functions of defensive atelier. In front of the Beffroi we find the fountain of Sainte-Odile, patron saint of Alsace, erected in 1904 to celebrate the arrival of running water to the city. We continued our visit and by the street of the market we arrived at the synagogue. Built in 1876, knowing of the existence of a Jewish community in Obernai since 1215. And where we ended our view of Obernai. From Obernai we headed back to the south, to Colmar, where we have our accommodation. But since there is still time until the sun goes down, and as we fall on the way to Colmar, we decided to visit the small village of RIBEAUVILLÉ. Ribeauville is located about 15 kilometers from Colmar and has about 5,000 inhabitants. Its economy is based on tourism and wine, being one of the places that make up the Alsatian Wine Route. As for parking, you will not have any problems, as both in front of the garden of the city, as in Clee Street or 3 December Street, you can find free parking without problems. We access the villa by the Grand Rue, the Mayor Street, which is the main axis and that crosses it from east to west. We access from the vineyard, from the gardens, and in front of the tourist office, we find the Fontaine du Vigneron. Built in 1909, highlighting the importance of viticulture in the locality, which is evident by the presence of several cellars, especially on the Grand Rue. We continue along the Grand Rue, with stores on both sides, and a little further on we find the Maison des Ménétriers or Casa de los Juglares, on whose viewpoint of the year 1663 we can see the inscription Ave Maria Gratia Plena. Ribeauville is known as the village of the Alsatian gamblers, so it is not strange to see along the route places where these are alluded to. We continue walking and pass next to the chapel of Santa Caterina, which was part of an ancient hospital, and where the Ribeauville family, very important in the Middle Ages, is buried, so much that they even named the city. From the chapel we arrive in a short time to the town square, whose building was built in 1773 in classical style and is located in front of the Church of the Convent, ancient Church of Augustine, built in the 14th century and in which it highlights its Gothic portal. We continue along the Grand Rue, passing below the Tower of the Carnival, the most emblematic monument of Ribeauville, and which owes its name to the activity of the Carnival Gremio that was located in the houses near the tower. Built in 1290, it was expanded in size until 1536, up to the current 29 meters of height, suffering a fire in 1803 where it was about to be demolished. The tower highlights its great clock and the shield of the Ribeauville family, which crowns the tower. After passing under the Tower of the Butchers, we arrive at a curious house, the Maison Cédille, a beautiful house in Renaissance style with a wooden trunk painted in red and in which, above all, the details of the facade, quite different from those of any other house with wood trunk, stand out. We arrive at the Plaza de la Cine, surrounded by very colorful houses, and that for us is one of the most beautiful sights to see in Ribeauville, and in which the Friedrich Fountain stands out in its center, whose sculpture by André Friedrich in its upper part identifies what represents for the city economically agriculture and industry. We continue walking through curious streets to the Protestant church that dates back to 1783. Then back to the Square of the Republic where our visit today ends. Totally recommended if you visit Alsace.